The sound of the wind brushed through the narrow alleys of downtown Los Angeles as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the city in a haze of gold and orange. Among the bustling streets filled with people chasing dreams, a young boy named Eli Carter, barely 14, stood on the corner of 7th and Main, a second-hand guitar hanging loosely from his shoulder, its wood scratched and weathered like a forgotten story. His shoes were torn, his hoodie 2 sizes too big, but his eyes, soft, amber, and full of quiet hope, glimmered with something pure. Every evening, after finishing his part-time job at a nearby diner, Eli would set up his small, worn-out amplifier beside an old street lamp and start to sing. Most people passed by, barely noticing him. Some dropped $1 or $2, not realizing that behind those soft melodies was a story of pain, loss, and an unbroken spirit. That evening, as the first notes of Hotel California floated into the air, something changed. His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't trained or polished. But it had a warmth, a raw, trembling honesty that made even the coldest heart pause. His fingers danced awkwardly across the strings, but every chord carried a piece of his soul. The haunting lyrics of the Eagles classic, "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave," echoed through the street with unexpected emotion, like he had lived every word. Across the street, a woman in her 40s named Rachel Donovan, a music producer who had once given up on finding real talent in the age of autotune, stopped in her tracks. She had been on her way home, exhausted from another day of auditions filled with overconfident voices and empty performances. But Eli's song, it didn't just sound beautiful, it heard beautifully. She stood frozen, tears filling her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt the kind of connection music used to give her before the industry hardened her heart. When Eli finished, a small crowd had gathered. A man clapped first, then another, and then, like a spark turning into a flame, the entire block erupted in applause. Eli looked up, startled, his face flushing red. He wasn't used to people listening. Rachel approached him slowly. "Hey, kid," she said softly. "That was incredible. What's your name?" Eli hesitated. "Eli. Just Eli. You ever thought about recording your voice?" she asked. He shrugged. "Can't afford that. I just sing here sometimes. My mom says it helps people feel better. She used to say that music heals hearts." His eyes drifted downward as he whispered, "She passed away last year." Rachel's heart broke a little. The way he said it, not with bitterness, but with quiet acceptance, told her everything she needed to know. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing his voice, the trembling, soulful sound of a boy who had lost everything but still believed in hope. She opened her laptop, searched for the Eagles' Hotel California, and replayed it, but it didn't feel the same. It lacked him. By morning, she had made a decision. She returned to that same corner the next evening, praying he'd be there. And he was, tuning his guitar, unaware that fate was about to change his life. "Eli," she said, walking up with a gentle smile. "I meant what I said yesterday. You have something special. Something people need to hear. I work with musicians, and I'd like to record you." His eyes widened in disbelief. "Record, me? For real?" Rachel nodded. "For real. No gimmicks. Just you, your guitar, and your voice." He looked down, fidgeting with the strap of his guitar. "But I don't even have clean clothes for that kind of thing." Rachel smiled softly. "Music doesn't care what you wear, Eli. It only cares about your heart." And with that, she handed him her business card, her first act of faith in years.
The small recording studio in Rachel's apartment smelled faintly of coffee and old dreams. The walls were lined with foam panels and posters of classic rock legends, Fleetwood Mac, the Beatles, the Eagles, reminders of the era when music spoke to souls, not algorithms. Eli stood in front of the microphone, his fingers trembling around the guitar pick. He'd never been inside a real studio before. The tiny red recording light blinked at him like an invitation, or a dare. Rachel smiled reassuringly from behind the console. "Just sing like you do on the street," she said. "Forget about the mic. Just tell your story." He nodded nervously. Then, he began. The first note drifted into the air, fragile but pure. And as his voice grew, so did the silence in the room. It wasn't just singing, it was confession, each lyric of Hotel California reborn through the pain and hope in his tone. The song was no longer about a mysterious hotel. In Eli's voice, it became a story of loss, of searching for a way out of grief, and of holding on to something beautiful when the world feels empty. By the time he reached the line, "Some dance to remember, some dance to forget," Rachel's throat tightened. She turned away quickly, pretending to adjust the levels, but really, she was crying. When the final chord faded, Eli lowered his hand slowly, unsure if he'd done it right. Rachel just stared at him for a moment, her eyes wet. "Eli," she whispered, "that was perfect." She uploaded the recording to YouTube that night under the title, "Homeless Boy's Voice Will Break Your Heart, Hotel California Cover." She didn't expect much. Maybe a few hundred views, a few kind comments. But by morning, the video had over 2 million views. By noon, it hit 10 million. And by nightfall, Eli Carter was the name on everyone's lips. Comments flooded in from around the world. "This kid's voice healed something in me I didn't know was broken. I cried listening to this. There's so much soul in every word. Eli, wherever you are, thank you." Rachel stared at the screen in disbelief as her notifications exploded. News outlets called, talk shows reached out, and music producers, the same ones who had once ignored her, wanted to meet the mysterious boy with the golden voice. But Eli didn't seem to care about fame. When Rachel showed him the view count, he just blinked. "That many people listened?" he asked softly. Then, maybe Mom was right. Maybe music really does heal hearts. Rachel smiled, hiding her own tears. "You didn't just touch hearts, Eli. You lifted them." Soon, they were invited to the Ellen show. For the first time in his life, Eli boarded a plane, wearing a donated denim jacket and his mom's old necklace, a small silver pendant shaped like a dove. As they sat backstage, he whispered to Rachel, "What if I mess up?" She squeezed his hand gently. "Then you'll still be real. And that's what people love about you." When the host introduced him, Please welcome the boy whose voice has touched millions." The audience erupted. Eli stepped onto the stage, his heart pounding like a drum. The lights were blinding, the cameras intimidating. But when the first chord of Hotel California rang out, everything else disappeared. He sang not for fame, not for applause, but for his mother, for every night she'd told him, "Keep singing, baby. The world needs your song." By the end of the performance, half the audience was in tears. Even Ellen herself wiped her eyes and hugged him tightly, whispering, "You have no idea what you've just done, sweetheart." That clip went even more viral, reaching hundreds of millions of views across platforms. Celebrities tweeted about him, radio stations played his version daily, and record labels sent offers worth more money than Eli could ever imagine. But not everyone saw the beauty in his story. A few weeks later, headlines began to twist the narrative. Is Eli Carter's story too good to be true? Exploited by a producer? Inside the viral sensation. Rachel's inbox filled with accusations, strangers claiming she was using the boy for fame. She was devastated. She had done everything out of love, but the internet didn't care about truth, it cared about drama. Eli saw the pain in her eyes. "Don't worry," he said softly one night as they sat on a park bench overlooking the city. "I know you believe in me. That's all that matters." She looked at him, her heart swelling with pride and guilt all at once. "You're just a kid, Eli. You shouldn't have to deal with all this noise." He strummed his guitar absent-mindedly and smiled. "It's okay. You said music heals, right? Maybe the world just needs another song." That night, he began writing his own, a soft, haunting melody about forgiveness, loss, and finding light in darkness. He called it The Other Side of the Sunset. When he posted a short clip online, it hit 1 million views in 2 hours. People said it made them cry, made them remember their own parents, their own battles, their own hopes. And then, life took another turn. One rainy evening, as Eli and Rachel were heading home after a charity performance, a drunk driver ran a red light. The impact was sudden, jarring, and brutal. The car spun out of control. Rachel woke up in the hospital, dazed and broken, her arm in a sling, her ribs bruised. Her first words were not "Am I okay?" but "Where's Eli?" The nurse looked down, hesitant. "He's in surgery." Rachel's heart shattered. She prayed harder than she ever had before. She prayed for the boy who had brought her back to life through music, the boy who had given hope to millions. For hours, the world held its breath. News spread fast, viral singing sensation Eli Carter in critical condition after accident. Candlelight vigils appeared in cities around the world. Fans sang his songs in unison, their voices trembling through the night air. Hashtags flooded social media, #PrayForEli, #VoiceOfH. The sterile beep of the heart monitor echoed in the white-walled hospital room. Machines hummed softly beside the frail, motionless body of 14-year-old Eli Carter. His once bright skin was pale beneath the fluorescent light. Tubes ran across his arms like fragile threads trying to tether him to life. Outside the hospital, the world waited. Thousands of people stood in candlelit vigils, in Los Angeles, New York, London, and Manila, holding signs that read "Sing again, Eli, and your voice still lives." His cover of Hotel California played on loudspeakers, his tender voice drifting through the cold night air like a prayer. Inside, Rachel sat at his bedside, her hand clasped around his. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady as she whispered, "Eli, do you hear that? They're all singing for you. The whole world's waiting for you to wake up." The doctors had said the accident caused severe trauma, that his chances were slim. But Rachel refused to believe it. She had seen the miracles his voice created, in strangers' hearts, across nations, across barriers of language and pain. She believed that same miracle could bring him back. Day after day, she stayed. Reading him messages from fans, playing recordings of his songs, hoping that somewhere deep inside, he could hear. One night, after weeks of silence, a nurse entered with tears in her eyes. "You should see this," she whispered, turning on the small TV mounted on the wall. It showed a massive crowd gathered in front of the Hollywood Bowl, candles raised high. Some were holding guitars, others sang softly into the night. On the stage stood a group of children, orphans, street performers, kids who said Eli's story had changed their lives. They began singing Hotel California, their voices rising together, imperfect but full of love. Rachel covered her mouth, overwhelmed. She whispered through her tears, "You see, Eli? You did this. You made people feel again." Then, for the first time in weeks, his fingers twitched. At first, she thought she imagined it. But then, his hand squeezed hers. Weakly. Gently. "Eli," she gasped, her heart leaping. "Eli. Can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered. The monitor beeped faster. A tear slid down from the corner of his eye. Rachel pressed the call button, shouting for the nurses. "He's awake. He's coming back." It was a miracle the doctors couldn't explain. They called it spontaneous recovery, but Rachel knew better. She knew it was the sound of love, millions of voices united by one boy's song, that pulled him back from the edge. When he opened his eyes fully, his first whisper was barely audible. "Did they sing?" Rachel laughed and cried all at once. "Yes, sweetheart. The whole world sang for you." Weeks passed, and slowly, Eli regained his strength. His injuries left scars, physical and emotional, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. The world followed his recovery like a beacon of hope in dark times. News. Anchors spoke not just about his talent, but about the compassion his story had awakened. When he was strong enough to walk again, Rachel wheeled him onto a stage at a charity concert dedicated to road safety and youth music programs. The venue was packed. People held banners that read, "We believe in you, Eli." He looked at the sea of faces and took a deep, trembling breath. The same guitar he used to play on the street rested in his hands, polished now, but still carrying every scratch, every tear, every dream. "I don't know why I got a second chance," he began softly into the microphone. "Maybe it's because I still had one more song to sing. So, this one's for everyone who never gave up on me, and for anyone who's ever been told their voice doesn't matter. The crowd fell silent. Then, he began to play. It wasn't Hotel California this time. It was his song, The Other Side of the Sunset. The one he had written before the accident. His voice, though softer now, carried a depth that only those who have faced the edge of life could possess. Each word felt like a heartbeat, a thank you, a promise. There's light beyond the shadow. There's peace beyond the pain. When you think the night has taken all, the dawn will rise again. By the final chorus, the entire audience was standing, many holding hands, many in tears. Some sang along. Others simply closed their eyes, letting the song wash over them. When he finished, the silence that followed was sacred. Then the applause erupted, thunderous, endless, like the world itself exhaling. Rachel rushed to him, hugging him tightly. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "No, we did it." That night, his performance went viral again, this time not as a story of tragedy or talent, but as a testament to human connection. It wasn't about fame anymore. It was about the reminder that kindness, belief, and love could change the course of a life. People around the world began donating to causes in Eli's name, funding music programs for underprivileged kids, building safe shelters for the homeless, and starting the Sing Again Foundation, inspired by the boy who once sang alone on a street corner. Months later, standing by his mother's grave, Eli placed his guitar down and whispered, "You were right, Mom. Music really does heal hearts." A gentle breeze brushed through the trees, as if she was answering him. Years passed. Eli grew older, but he never lost that spark, that humility, that gratitude. He became a songwriter, mentoring young singers who reminded him of his own beginnings. Every time he heard one of them doubt themselves, he'd smile and say, "Don't sing to be heard. Sing to heal." And every now and then, he'd pick up his old guitar and play Hotel California, the song that had once changed his life and, somehow, changed the world. In one of his final interviews years later, when asked what he believed was the secret to his story, he smiled thoughtfully.